So today we have the pleasure to talk with Peter from Vader during their stopover in Helsinki in the context of their Message to the North tour, which started a few days ago in Lithuania. Hi Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. We just started, 3 days. So everything is all right. Good team, good people, good tour, good shows.
Yeah, it's a killer lineup. The three top-notch Polish bands, Vader, Hayden, Die Disease, plus some guests from Bulgaria and the USA, and also Lila Beneta from Poland was you in the beginning. And what kind of reception have you gathered from the fans so far?
It's good. We're not the first time in all those cities, including Helsinki today. So we already have like many friends, and definitely gonna show up tonight. And so we get some new songs from the last record included in the set list, plus we changed something, so that might be pretty interesting show for Vader and all those bands who play with us. So it's going to be definitely interesting evening for everybody.
Yeah, so you guys playing with Annihilator and Testament last year here in Helsinki, and your set was mind-blowing, very very brutal and technical. And how would you compare the experience of performing now as a main act in contrast to opening for other bands or playing a big festival? Like how do you feel the difference in the audience?
That tour, the Testament and Annihilator, so that was first of all big one. That's a big tour, so you may expect like many fans, like showing up every night. But honestly, if you want to see Vader with a full throttle, so it's better to visit us when we are headlining, because then we get like more chances. Like the set list is bigger, and we can just give 120% of the power. And when you play like one of the few bands on a supporting act, so you never got like 100% abilities, like, because that's how it is, So, but anyway, so that tour was pretty good, and so actually the last week I was talking to Jeff about making probably next year something together in Canada, and they working with on a new record, so we already have new record, and so 2020 it would be definitely busy year for both of us, both bands.
Yeah, that's cool. And you're currently promoting your latest EP, The Messenger, which was released by a Nuclear Blast, just like the most of your albums in the last decade. But I also noticed that you have released some albums through Witching Hour Productions, which is a Polish independent record label. How does it work? Like, what kind of deal do you have, or how do you, in the end, like choose how to release these different albums?
These are, first of all, like historical albums. It's a re-releases or something from the old days. Nuclear Blast is not interested like in releasing everything, bands appear, and we started with releasing like the very first works, demo tapes, on vinyl, and some nice boxes, and we're following with the first album. So actually we tried to cooperate with Eric Records, which was original record company, and they released the Ultimate Incantation album in 1993. But unfortunately, we couldn't just do it, because like Eric didn't let us release even limited license versions of that. So the only way to release the first album for 25th anniversary was just record it again. So we did. We named the album a little bit different, but we still had original painting from Don Seagrave, who made the original, the Ultimate Incantation cover art. And so we wanted to do something. Eric didn't want to cooperate with us, so what could we do? And the album called Dark Age was released 2 years ago, so we made also some special events when we played the whole album as a whole. Fans like that. Fans like this kind of stuff, and we had like new albums coming up the next year. Our second album, which is one of the favorite albums of Vader for fans, De Profundis, is going to be 25 years since it was released. It's going to be 20 years since Litany was released, and there's another favorite album. So probably we're gonna we're gonna re-release those both albums like in next year, plus new albums. So that's gonna be very, very, very good year for Vader.
Yeah, it sounds quite intense. A lot of releases coming up, and Vader are of course pioneers when it comes to Polish metal in general. And you started in the early '80s, but released your first album only in 1992. What kind of memories do you hold from those early years before you released your first album, and it was like communist Poland and stuff?
It's a long story just to say that in a few lines, and you just can't do that. So we had a book called Total War. Unfortunately, it's already released just in Polish language, but we're working on an English edition as well, and Russian. And this is a pretty thick book, about the whole story, like especially like focus on the early days, because that was the most interesting days, and like for everybody from a new generation, because that was absolutely different days, different times for the band, like playing extreme metal in Eastern countries, in '80s. And so I was, like we are the band who started something in '80s, in the middle of '80s, and we're absolutely parallel to all business and like music business in Poland. Metal business was not existing in those days, So actually, we were one of those who started the underground scene in Poland. One of the bands, not the only one, but probably we were one of few who survived the time, and so we're happy. So we exist for so many years, and we still have like fans, younger generation still having fun and enjoying Vader. So that's I think the biggest effort, and that makes me the most happy, that we're still an active band and we still have fun. We're not just like dinosaur band who plays for like old pricks only.
Yeah, and talking about Poland, I wanted to ask you about the current state of the Polish extreme metal scene, because there's in addition to the 4 bands that took part of this tour, acts like Behemoth, Vatushka, and Mla have achieved a lot of recognition internationally. What do you think is the key to the success of the Polish metal scene nowadays?
I have no idea. So I don't really have so much time like compared to the past, So I'm not following everything. So what I know is what I know from my friends. Like most of those bands you mentioned, they're friends of mine, and I know those guys for years. It's like. I can say something about Behemoth because they're like going through the scene for years, for decades. So they gain like a huge success, in the world with the performances. I think they deserve it. They get just kind of like mix of like black metal, death metal, and with this spectacle on the stage. Some people like that. But Vatushka or Mgła, has something different. I think this is a new modern kind of success, Like they gave something they didn't even expect, They can just be so huge, after just a few albums released. And what can I say? Just I can wish them luck, in the future.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell that my first contact with Vader was in high school. A friend of mine lent me a copy of Future of the Past, and I was immediately surprised by your ability to make kick-ass covers of metal classics, and how important it is for you to keep paying tribute to the gods at this point in your career. For example, last example is Stealer by Judas Priest.
I'm a fan, I'm a metal fan for years, and every time if I can give some respect, the best respect is just to play covers, just to remind the new generations what was a classic, what is a classic in metal. And we keep that if we have time, and if we have a studio ready like for that. So we did Future of the Past with the milestones for death metal. Like for me, it was for me and for Vader. So including bands like Creator, Possessed, Celtic Frost, and more, Black Sabbath. And the people were asking for like maybe giving something more like part 2. It took years until I decided to release it, but I totally changed mine because I focus on beginning of Polish metal scene, and I focus on my friends from the past, for the bands who are so much important in Poland, but they just absolutely forgotten in the meantime, So I tried to bring back like those bands who never released something like important. They just disappeared in the meantime, but they were very popular and very important in the metal scene in Poland in the '80s. So we did Future in the Past Part 2, which we called Hell and East, and that's it. Sometimes I add as a bonus, when we release EP, something, another like legend, which is important, some song which I like and we can still perform live. It's in the same vein, just to keep tradition, going on, just to keep some songs. Like actually, Judas Priest came back with a absolutely great album, and so everybody just thought that Judas Priest is gonna be ended. They even got the tour called the Epitaph, but which made me really really happy that they released an absolutely great album, and they still going on, they still active. I love this band. Actually, I think it's Judas Priest made me metalhead. Actually, I started with Black Sabbath, but Judas Priest is a band who made me metalhead. And with Judas Priest I started to listen like more extreme band later on, like Slayer, Morbid Angel, the D-side, that, and more, that. So that was like our own, respect to this band, And I had the chance, to meet them like personally. Like we supported Judas Priest twice in Poland, on festivals. So very nice guys, like all those metal gods, from the past. Really, these guys are different, different kind of people. They're not rock stars. They play like so great music, and they huge, just icons. But they act like normal people, like metalheads, even if they like 50s, 70s, year old sometimes. They just good guys, and still enjoying what they're doing. It's like, and that's very important to me. That's motivating thing.
Yeah, definitely. One last question, since we're running out of time. Based on the name of the band, I assume they're a big fan of the Star Wars original trilogy. What do you think about the prequel, sequel, spin-off, and how Disney had handled the franchise?
Yeah, Disney is a good explanation of everything, I think. But seriously, when we took a name from Star Wars, that was a different movie. Like we were younger, and this cult, movie Star Wars was different. Vader was kind of iconic, like dark person, in those days. So nobody had an idea that something like Anakin Skywalker gonna show up, in the future. But all in all, I really like this. The 3 episodes, the 3, which we know as the first, and then 3 following. Maybe I was a little bit disappointed because like. The first episode, what's the name? The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
It was, I think, a little bit more made for like younger generation, even for kids, so the whole family may watch. It was not as dark as those first 3 parts, 4, 5, and 6, like we know, And but all in all, later, so all this story was smartly made as a whole. So I like that. But what was next? With this, after Vader died, that was different to me. It looks like after so many years, Lucas and Disney, they trying to make absolutely the same what we saw on New Hope part, the first one, just more Hollywood style, more effects, bigger, this Death Star is just bigger, and something is, I think, just too stupid, something. Right? But we live in a different world, and I think the people, like the new generation, they get something we never had. They get internet, they had like mobile phones, everybody got it, so the technology gets so high, so probably the younger generation, we couldn't understand what was for us so spectacular on the first Star Wars movie we watched, back in the 80s, or 70s, everything. And so maybe that's an idea. However, I feel that this is just the same, just in the Hollywood style, bigger. It's a Star Wars New Hope, but made in 21st century. That's my feeling, of course.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm waiting for the next one. So I really like those little episodes they made, in the meantime,
Yeah,
that's
like
really good
Rogue
idea.
One.
Yes, that's a really good idea, and I really like that, I think more than the
7 and 8.
the serial things,
Yeah. Okay, but to conclude the interview, would you like to send a message to your fans, invite them to listen to your latest record or come to your tour?
You know, I always, you know, we we wouldn't exist without fans. You know, Vader exists for so many years because we have fans and because fans, you know, support us. So I can't just say enough good words about like how much we love our fans, and actually what we do for fans. It's of course our job. We live from music, but we do it not just for us. We do it with the music. We do it for fans, you know, and it works like both sides, you know, together. And so what can I promise? So we get an EP recorded, Thy Messenger, but we recorded that just because we knew that the full album was going to be delayed. So at first we wanted to release album in December this year, but after this speech with Nuclear Blast personalities, so we think like it's a little bit better for everybody to release it in the beginning of 2020. So the album will be probably released late January or beginning February. I can't say the title yet because I'm still thinking. I can't decide about that. So I'm still waiting for the main cover art from Wes Benskotter. But the album is recorded. The older and the oldest songs, the title songs, are already done. So probably we're gonna make it public. And what can I say? I'm sure the fans of Vader will like it. It's different than the last album, The Empire. So I think it's a little more like, it's not the same, because maybe I shouldn't say that. So just let's wait for that and let's decide. The fans decide if they like it or not. But it's going to be a very brutal album. It's probably the most brutal in the whole history of Vader. And but that's Vader, so what can I say?
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, Peter, and looking forward to listen to your show now tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.